Hey everybody, welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture, and we are back in the saddle once again for another season. And I have with me comic creator and owner of Crystyle Inc., Christopher Curtis. So welcome to the show because I'm super excited to have you on.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's been a very I'm just ready for like spring break. So one more week.
Hey, I feel you. I feel you completely. I don't have a spring break, but also I get to work 4 days from home. So I cannot complain about my life in any which way. But as I stated, I'm actually very excited to have you on. I'm a big manga guy, I'm a big anime guy, and you currently have a manga slash comic that's on Kickstarter, Jazz Juggernauts against Zealous Zealots. I
You
think
got
it's
it.
Zealots. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it. It's the first volume. It is definitely a manga, and it's definitely over 100 pages. So, what is the basic story before we really dive into it? For those who don't know anything about this, and you're going to tell us, hopefully.
Oh yeah, no, it's super simple. There are portals that appear over this futuristic city that spawn monsters and other dimensional beings, and the Neo Haven government has told everybody that it's okay, it's fine, we have it under control. We have this shield system that is in place to protect you. So just do what we say and not as we do, and people have become docile to it. So a group of five people, well, four people with a android, are the only ones to say no. This is not right. We have to figure out what's going on because nobody else will. So it comes down to the us versus the government versus the monsters kind of story. So it's simply just that, and it's in small hindsight.
Yeah, we're going to dive into this because it's a little bit more complicated than that, and a lot of stuff's going
Oh yeah,
on. And, these are people who obviously have an issue with what's going on. They're concerned for their safety. I don't know if they have a family or if they have relationships or whatever, their motive is, but they also are somewhat not happy to have to do this job.
yeah,
And they're brought together by a scientist, and so it's really interesting in that realm where you kind of have these heroes saying, we have to do a dirty job, essentially. And
right.
they don't seem too thrilled about it, but they don't seem unhappy. But they kind of want to say, what the hell is going on here? Because we're said you protected us and you're going to protect us and this is going to work, but it's not necessarily working.
Right. So as far as family is concerned, the scientist, that is the father of one of the jazz members. So there's that small connection between that high tier technology and the street level heroes.
Yeah. And then even to go further into this, because where it gets super interesting, and obviously I'm an anime fan, and the
Mhm.
Portal stuff reminds me very much of Neon Genesis Evangelion with the angels coming out and the Avas coming out.
Yep.
And very much in that realm. Obviously, we got a city, and it obviously is an invasion. There's like a little bit of a Walking Dead spin where this is a little out of control. I think it's World Trigger is also another anime that this reminds me of in a
World
lot of
Trigger.
ways. And so, what is this like too? Because clearly, you know, you have an interdimensional species who is extremely hostile towards humanity, and we don't really know their intention off the bat, whether they want to conquer Earth, whether they are interested in just taking land, if they're fleeing, their homeworld. And 90%, if not more, are hostile. But then there's some good ones in this thing. And so, what is that like too? Because clearly there's something else in play with these creatures, how they're being manipulated, what even they want, and even how, this spins out into volume 2, 3, 4, and 5 in a lot of
Oh
ways too,
man.
because this is a political problem
Yep.
more so than a physical problem. And now we have to deal with intergalactic laws, essentially.
Essentially. So
I know
whoever
I'm
comes.
throwing a lot. I'm throwing a lot at
Oh
you.
no, I'm catching it. So the beings who come through the portals, they're not really like I'm here to conquer this place. It's all confusion. Something is pulling them in from wherever they're from, and forcing them here. And a lot of it is just like genuine like confusion. And in that confusion, it's like I have to go to my like animal instincts and just thrash. And in doing so, that's where it's like, oh no, they're hostile. No, they're just kind of like, where am I at? But I can't really connect it. So there is a hidden thing going on that I can't wait for everybody to like find out and visibly see it. I've seen it recently, and it's been one of those like I want to post it on Twitter so bad.
So let's actually dive into that too, because I'm in the middle of writing my first comic,
Right.
and somebody gave me a really good piece of advice, and it's Tom Hutchinson from Big Dog Inc. And he's like, you should make your first issue a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And you shouldn't drop anything major, and it's going to get real dark real quick. And people are going to be like, oh, snap, I did not see that coming. And it's going to get Ruby Volume 3 dark is how I'm going to play it, where everybody's going to be like, this is a PG sweet book. And then it's going to be like, oh, now we've gone deep into things. And I'm looking forward to it. But I'm super excited to write it. I'm having a blast writing it. And I've never written a comic before, and I'm writing maybe 2 or 3 pages a weekend, and I'm just taking my time with it. But what is this like? Because I can't tell anybody any of the plot twists except a few people, and it's killing me inside. And I don't know how you feel, but like it's a weird thing, right? When you're like, man, I just want to share this because everyone's gonna be like, dude, this is awesome. I'm so excited.
Right.
But you know you can't say it because it'll ruin it. And then there's also the whole thing where you're just going to be like, if I then tell what happens, it ruins the shock value.
Right. Somebody guessed it a few weeks ago, randomly on Twitter, and it took all of me to not just go, "Hey, come here real quick. Like, you want to see the end?" So, yeah. I mean, if to knock it down in layman's terms, it's literally just a cross up between Teen Titans and Attack on Titans, both the anime and the manga. And most people are like, I'm sold off of that premise. So it's just like that. Just you have to just bear with me and catch it as it goes along.
Yeah. And then let's even go further into this too a little bit, where obviously, I mean, you go even further into this because one of the things that you have this group, and obviously I think they're all friends to some degree, and they're all put together, and they're all sort of unique, and they all have, I guess, commonalities. And, they're also concerned, and they want to know what the hell is going on and who's doing what and why they're doing it. And it gets really interesting because now you have something where they're regarded as heroes in a lot of ways for dealing with these creatures that are confused and putting them down. And there's been extensive research on how to deal with these creatures. But then there's also the realization at some point that they're going to be like, wait a second, these creatures were being manipulated and they don't want to be here. And we just killed 50 of them. That's going to raise some interesting questions too. And then it becomes a morality issue in a lot of ways.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I'm such a show don't tell person. So I'm just kind of like, let's get through the first volume and then you'll get all the nitty gritty later. I will say that in the very first chapter that I did release, it was a preview. You will kind of see that there's a little bit of infighting. It's a tad bit. It's not enough where you're like, oh wait, there's some actual problematics. But when you have a team such as this one where they're like real close, you're gonna have times where there might be like, I need to come check you because you're acting wild. And then it's one of those like, come shut me up. So
let's actually talk about that too, because this is one of the things that I think is really interesting as well, where, I don't know if you know Mike Tiener from Bad Bug, but he has a book called Black Jackets. And it's becoming a very interesting comic because there's a time skip, there's some other stuff going on, and there's some checking going on in that book. And I think it is relevant. I think this is one of the biggest problems with comics, especially American comics, is that you don't have Batman checking Superman anymore. You don't have Superman checking Batman.
No, you do not.
They used to check each other. There used to be a position where Bruce Wayne and his utility belt used to carry some kryptonite. That hasn't been in the comics or even hinted at in a very long time. And what is that like? Because I feel like you're doing something, you're adding a level that this is actually plausible now. Because if we were on a superhero team together and you didn't check me on a bad call, that wouldn't be, that would be odd in a lot of ways.
It would not be
What is
realistic.
that like? Because I think that's lacking in comics right now on the big two.
Well, so what it looks like here is that you have every member is differing of ages. The youngest member is of course Mute, who's only like 3 because he's an android. But humanoid wise, your youngest one is 21. Your oldest one is like 28. So you have that like big sister type character, and with siblings, you kind of have to like establish dominance. So it's really just kind of like, I need you to listen to me and stop being so damn like rambunctious. And then the other one is, I need you to quit being uptight. And it's kind of like a childish back and forth for a bit, and it does come to head one big time. But it's just, I want to make it as natural as possible for people that have families or have seen families, where it's like, oh yeah, that's how my big sister is, or that's how my little sister is. So it's just, that's the way I want to do it. And it does feel fluid. It feels like it's not ham drawn, or I don't know what I'm doing. So I can't wait for people to, to even get there. There is a small bit of that in chapter 0.
Yeah, and even going into this too a little bit, because obviously, I mean, these are people who know each other. They have relationships, they have friendships, they might have some romantic interests in one another to some degree, some of these characters, or they obviously might have a boyfriend, girlfriend who's not on this team. And when you're opposing the government and you're fighting these creatures and moments get intense, I mean, obviously friendships and relationships, either get stronger, get weaker, they disform, being challenged. And so what is this like? Because that also creates a very interesting position. And obviously it becomes almost a secondary story, because clearly as you're in the middle of a very heated position, and you're uncovering things that are not fun and the ugly truth, for lack of a better word, this stuff starts getting tested. And I think, when we start diving into issues 2, 3, 4, and 5, and even when we get past this first issue, what is that like to throw in there? Because it's a very complicated thing to do, I feel, and do it well.
So I was going to do the whole team on team dating. And then the more I read other stuff, the more I was like, no, that just seems boring and hard to keep up with. And because I'm going to have to start doing secondary and tertiary storylines on top of bigger storylines, and I'm lazy. So they're not actually dated. There will be none of that on the team. If there is a love interest, it'll be offside, and that makes it easier to fold into a different storyline.
Yeah. But even to go further into that, I mean, obviously you now have a team that is trying to uncover the truth of these creatures. And that's a big relationship thing. And that obviously has to go into this, because that's sort of primary the story to some degree. And so what is that like? Because when we start turning up the heat and they start discovering things that they really shouldn't be discovering, it gets very interesting. And obviously doing something, because one of the major themes of this entire story is sometimes if you want to be a hero, you have to do things that aren't popular. And there are consequences for those actions. And when you're opposing a government that says we're keeping everybody safe in our city, and in reality they're not, and then you're saying, hey, why do we need these shield systems? There are consequences for that action of you challenging it and trying to say, why do we need this? And why are these creatures here? And what's the intention of whoever's doing this? And obviously you're going to get criticized. And as a team, I mean, it's so interesting. That's what I find fascinating about this book in particular, is that there's the first thing of just these creatures invading and these heroes trying to stop it, but then it's all the background of the why.
Right. Are you trying to get me to discuss Prisma? Because I think that's what you want to do.
No. I'm trying to discuss the idea of writing complicated issues and writing first and then secondary and thirdary, and really going into a very interesting position, because I feel like it's lacking in comics right now heavily. And I think this is where people, because to me, this seems smooth, if that makes any sense. And where we're getting at is that it doesn't seem like here's everything and I'm just going to throw it to you. It almost feels like it's organic, with that we have problem A, but you didn't reveal it yet exactly why this is an issue. And that's the thing too, is that it's almost like a faceless enemy at the moment.
At the moment, yeah. No, it's just the only. Well, shoot. If you read the first full version of Chapter Zero, the faceless enemy does show up. I kept it hidden because I was like, if I'm going to do a preview, I'll do a preview. The full version gets the actual ending when you see all the big like antagonist showing. So it's just the mayor. The mayor is lying, and that's where I'll leave it at. Because what he's lying about and how he's lying is where it gets all spicy.
He's having an affair, guys. That's what's going on.
He's having an affair
with his secretary, and you only see her legs and below. And if you don't know the reference, you don't know the reference. I'm sorry, everybody. It's a very famous show. It's a very famous show, that reference. That was for children, but it was really for adults. Brilliant concept. But anyway, I don't want to push too further into this story because I do want to talk about some other stuff. Obviously, I don't want to ruin it for everybody. Obviously, you're giving me a signal that I should not ruin it and I should back off because I don't want to be that guy. If anything I threw out interests anybody, you should go back to the campaign. It's really what you should do. But I do want to actually talk about some other stuff that's fascinating with your book that I don't think is too much of a spoiler. And one of the things that I think is also interesting with your book, and it's sort of inside baseball, is that you're not scared to dive into a little bit of nudity as you see fit for the story. And I think it's a really complicated issue in a lot of ways, and I don't think it should be. But I feel like certain people want to do bad girl art cover. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. But putting nudity in a book, making it fit the story, and not putting in, nudity for the sake of nudity, but putting it in because, well, if a character is having sex and it's a key component of the story, it should fit there. Or if a character is, gets a call at 4 a.m. and they're sleeping naked and they got to suit up, there you go. So what is that like? Because I feel like a lot of creators put nudity in a book for the sake of putting nudity to make their book seem more adult, or do it almost as fan service versus doing it as, hey, this is natural.
Hey, however you have to do it, just do it. The nudity in jazz is just that. I was trying to figure it out last year, and I asked questions, and then I got yelled at because people were like, "Why ask the questions? Just do it." So I went from not trying to find out to just going, "All right, fine, I'll delve into it." So this is a part of the storyline or the actual theme of it, yes and no, but at the same time, you see some breast meat. Like at the end of the day, who wins? You win.
So to even talk about that too a little bit, where do you also feel that when you went and threw nudity into it? So I'm writing a book. There's probably not going to be any nudity in my book. My book is superhero-esque. I don't think it would fit, right? And then I got another book that eventually I'm going to work on that's more military. Again, nudity doesn't fit. That doesn't mean there's not sexy characters. That doesn't mean there's not fun stuff, but it doesn't fit in the story. If you're trying to stop a, eco-terrorist group, chances are nudity is not front and center in that. But
Probably
do you feel that because you put the nudity in there and that it's in there, that it almost makes your book more adult, and that it then also changes the audience a little bit? And then the audience, it makes it almost somewhat easier to market to them, or it eliminates people who may or may not be interested in your book. And therefore, it's taken more serious, I guess.
I feel like my overarching story is deep enough and engaging enough where you could sit down and just get like 4 panels of maybe like an ankle or something, and then you could like move on. So does it put me in a different category? Probably, but I feel like people will at least sit down and they will at least get over it if they have an issue with it. Maybe they'll, all right, let me not do page 14 then, and then
because
keep going.
the way I see it, and I'll clarify my question. When you say I have nudity in my book,
Mhm.
and you're upfront about it, what I think it does is that it automatically creates saying, okay, this is more of an adult book now. Now this book is not, some, chibi cotton candy fluff book, right?
Right.
And now I know that this book, it might have an F-bomb in it. It might have a more serious tone to it. And it definitely changes the way I come into the book before I even pick up the book. So if you say, so for instance, if you go to Scoot, which is Scout's children's imprint, I come in with a different expectation. First thing, if I come to Scout with a book that Travis Gibb does called Granite State Punk, that has some F-bombs in it, I come in and it says for mature readers, I come in with a different mentality. And that's why I think this is so interesting, because when you say, oh, there's some nudity in here and there's some other stuff, I'm like, cool, we're now in an adult book and we're going to deal with adult situations versus having, a run-of-the-mill, Teen Titans Go story.
So I tried my best to use the rating system that the Japanese use for all their mangas versus our own rating system, and they actually have a bit of what I offer in a lot of their like young teen books. Like Dragon Ball is not a adult book at all, and it does have bouts of breast, bouts of nudity here and there. So that's kind of what I was going for. You're not going to find, like, there will never be a sexual intercourse on like none of the pages. There will never be.
So it's not Booty Royale then.
No, not at all. No. So now I see what you're asking. Okay, so no, it's literally just like, in a way, like Japanese fan service style, where it's there and then it's there for me, where it's like, hey, nice, and then I just go on. So I'll never dwell on it. Language will never get spicy to that kind of extent. There will be no insertion. What I mean by nudity is that, hey, there's a butt cheek here, or hey, there's a chest that is going on because of this thing going on, and then they'll kind of make a gag out of it, and then they'll just move on. So I'm thinking like real Japanese.
The way I view it is that when somebody has a Bad Girl art cover, it also changes the way I come into that campaign too. And I think, it's very interesting. And now it changes your audience, but it also changes in cool. We're now taking it up a notch where there's not going to be, I'll give a really good example. Whenever somebody has a Bad Girl art cover that's a nude cover, I know that the potential of a happy ending is on the table, of not having a happy ending. Meaning, no, not even sexual, but like the fact that all these heroes could die, right? So if you have a superhero book that has the three girls who are the main superhero team nude on the cover, it is on the table that all of them can die in the story.
Oh.
If there is no nude cover, the potential of them all dying is significantly less in my head. And it sounds weird when I say that, because I'm like, okay, cool, we might be telling a happy ending story where everything gets wrapped up in a neat bow. First thing that, you might not be unhappy with the ending if you go down that route. And that's why I think it's so interesting. And that's the mentality I come in with. And I can't be the only one who thinks like that. But that's just my thoughts on it. And that's what I'm trying to gauge. But I want to dive further into the manga side too, because that's also interesting with your thing. And you could have done this in a comic format. You could have done it in a manga format, which you did. But why did you go the manga route? Because American manga and manga collectively is destroying comics and kicking their ass in storytelling, in uniformity, anime, which is manga's, predecessor. I guess it's a successor in a lot of ways, right?
It can be, yeah.
I mean, it can go either way, but most, manga usually starts and then the anime comes secondary with the big shows. But what prompted you to want to do this in a manga style? Because it's such an interesting move, and I think it was actually the right move and I think it's just huge right now. Manga is bigger than it's ever been, and it is killing comics, and manga's outselling comics by
Right.
far.
So you're gonna laugh at me. It was literally production cost. I started off with like, I need to go get an inker, a colorist, did this and that, and then I kind of was like, well, wait, how much is Screen Tone? And Screen Tone is like, oh, it comes with like Clip Studios, and everybody's just using Clip Studios, so it's like, so I just need to go get a black and white, then I'm done. Well, then sign me up, chief. So it started off with like production cost, and then I kind of started like looking up like, do we even have a American manga community? Or matter of fact, can I even do manga? So I asked a lot of Japanese people that are in the art form that are like pretty big, and they was like, yes, why the fuck are you not? So all my research was only like a week long, and I threw away all my old comic stuff and was like, all right, so manga only. This is where I'm at now. This is the future. And since then, I've never met so many manga artists, manga community. Like Saturday AM, like I'm tight with them now, and it's like, wow, like this is a big thing.
So let's kind of talk about that too, because I view that manga, it's tricky, and this might be a controversial topic where I think there are American mangas. I think there's Japanese manga. And I think there's also just manga collectively. I think they're under the umbrella of manga. So my friend Tyler Carpenter does a manga called The Fist with the Mega Girl.
I know him.
And it's great. And he does a great job with it. I think he just did over 10K on his third campaign with that series, volume 3. So there's a lot of money that can be made with this stuff. And clearly it's also, in my opinion, manga's faster pace in a lot of ways in comics. You can do in comics, you can do a lot more things in manga. I feel like you have more liberties in a lot of ways. You also have more cinematic elements to them. And also manga, I feel, allows for more finalization than comics do. And I'm curious how you feel about that, because the big guys, I mean, we'll use Dragon Ball. Actually, Dragon Ball is not a good example of this because Goku keeps on coming back. That's probably not the best answer. But there is finalization in manga. In a lot of mangas, when a character dies in Naruto, that character is dead.
Right.
I mean, example of this is that when Neji died in Naruto at the end, he's dead. He doesn't come back in Boruto. And so what is that like for you? Because I think it gives you so much more freedom. And I think it's just red fucking hot right now, manga, too. And it might have been a happy accident, but it's definitely way more popular.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I'm at where I'm at and growing because of that. Yeah, no, you're right, because Marvel and DC have been playing this stupid game of like the multiverses and pulling characters in and out who die, come back, then die, then come back. So no, you're right. Once you're gone to manga, you're gone. And I feel like storytelling being more finite instead of being more open-ended is way better. Like, same way I feel about video games. I want my games to end after a certain period of time. I don't want to do the long open world forever thing. Like, no, like give me the ending so I can go ahead and go find something else to go do. So yeah, I'm there.
Yeah, and then even going further into cost as well. Obviously, manga is cheaper in certain ways because you don't have to color it. But also the way you did it is that, I mean, you produced a lot more pages. By definition, I mean, you produced over 100 pages for this, and this is a book. This is not a single issue. It's not a single floppy of a manga of 20 pages. I mean, it's 100 plus pages. And so what is that like too? Because obviously your costs go up in that realm, but you're also not coloring. You're also not doing all the covers. You're not doing all that other shit that happens in a comic. So what is that like though? Because it is a bigger risk in certain ways when you have to go out there and produce more content. Because I think with manga in particular, especially in the American market, you need to produce 100, 200 pages and then fund it that way. Because I don't think anybody's buying a floppy for $4. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's why I went from trying to do like chapter 1, chapter 2, Kickstarter. I just said, screw it. Let's just do a volume off rip. It's way better value and cost wise than me trying to do them in pieces. But yeah, no, I will see here. It's pricey. It has been pricey. but it's not as bad as you think it really is. Manga artists are, especially when they work full time, they're fast. It's almost like I get like almost half a chapter done in like a week or so, going into it. So I like that better than actual comics. Comic wise, it's
let's actually talk about this because I actually don't know this. So obviously, I'm writing a script. I am nowhere near hiring an artist. I am nowhere near going to Kickstarter with my comic, and I'm not interested in doing a manga. My starting out, I want to do a comic book. I love manga and I enjoy manga. I'm a big anime weeboo. I mean, my company is Pop Anime Comics. I mean, if that doesn't say what I love and what I don't love, I don't know what will.
right.
But what is that like? Because what I hear in comics is I hear artists being slow. I hear artists being, I don't want to say lazy, but, they don't work quickly and they're doing all this panel work and they don't seem to want to do the work and bang out 24 pages. Like I want to bang out content, right?
Mhm.
And if I have a client, I want to, so if, I run ad services, I want to find interviews. I want to get that ad done. And if you bought 100 ads from me, I want to get those things done as quickly as humanly possible. Because that means that if I get that done in a week, and that means I can then work on the next 100. And so what is that like for you? Because you're not the first person I heard this from.
Well, as far as like the overall speed,
the speed and the professionalism, because I think it's a big problem in comics where I think comics in a lot of ways for a lot of people is slow as fuck.
Well, it's slower because you have multiple people doing jobs and roles in comics. So when one can't do their job until they get back something from somebody else and vice versa. Manga can do the same thing where you might have a letterer, you might have a inker, you might have a sketcher. My guy does it all. So his speed is like upinged on his actual overall speed in total. But you could find a quick guy, and then you can have a bad manga or a bad comic. So sometimes time is probably the best value. You just have to like work around that work, about that speed on how you produce as a writer.
No, I just think it's interesting because I hear stories of just people taking forever in comics with a book. And, it's not that they're just taking a month. They're taking like 4 or 5 months to get a whole 20-page book done. And it's problematic in a lot of ways. And so I just think it's really, really interesting in that regard that, obviously, somebody in manga wants to get it done like in a week and a half. They want to get the fucking thing done. And I think that that's a real advantage too, because time is important. And if somebody can get you 5 chapters and you can go to Kickstarter and get that thing funded, then you now have your book done. You know what I mean? And you can then get it funded and then you can sell it. And I think that's what people forget is that time is a resource and time is money.
Exactly.
And so I just think it's super interesting in that regard. And then even going further into that too, I mean, obviously we are in a society, and this is what I think is also really cool what you've done. Tyler did the same thing where his manga, Girl with the Mega Fist, has 200 plus pages. So when I back that campaign, I'm getting 200 pages of a manga. So I'm getting, I think, 10 chapters in his book. And I'm getting more substance. And I think that's one of the biggest problems in comics right now, outside of mainstream and indie, is if you produce every 6 months your book and you're only giving me 28 pages, I mean, that's a real problem. So what is this like for you to be giving somebody 110, 120 pages of content in a single volume? This way they could actually consume more of the story and actually get hooked onto the story. Because I think that's the problem is that if you give me 4 chapters at once or 5 chapters at once, I now have a bigger bite into the pot.
Right. I would like to find that out. This is my first time trying to do it. I've only sold one whole volume so far, and it was only to somebody who I knew in person, and their reaction to it is what made me want to go try to sell it. But no, I would like to see more people get into it because bigger stories are better than getting them in pieces.
And then also it's presented nicely, and that's the thing too. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think your book is sort of the manga size, right?
Yeah,
Sort of like the manga size of Barnes and Noble, and sort of the Shonen Jump style. Because
right.
this is one of the biggest problems. And I don't know if you've been in a Barnes and Noble lately, but I grew up every weekend going to Barnes and Noble on Saturday. And so it used to be the graphic novel section for the last probably, I've been going since I was like 10. So I'm 30 now. For the last 20 years, the graphic novel section used to destroy the manga section. And it has slowly, the manga section has slowly gotten bigger to the point where there's 4 shelves that are graphic novels, and there is legitimately 10 in the Barnes & Noble that I go to that are manga. And that's a big shift. And the manga side is all universal, and the graphic novel side is all not. Even the Marvel books are all different sizes. And so what is that like too? Because if I put your book next to Naruto on my bookshelf, it's going to look like it belongs.
Right.
And I think that's something that people don't realize until they see it. And I think subconsciously I then go and wake up and I look at it, I'm like, oh, cool, that book and that book belong next to each other.
Right. Well, hold on. Somebody asked you how many pages were. It's over 100 plus. Whoever you are, I saw you. I saw you commenting. The chat's open now. Yay. What I'm sorry. What does it look like next?
Oh, no. I was just curious what it's like for you to know that your book has the same dimensional standards like Naruto or One Piece or Dragon Ball Z, or just what's on a shelf in Barnes and Noble or at a shelf on Midtown Comics, because I'm in Connecticut, and Midtown's in Manhattan. It's a big store, or any major big bookstore that carries manga. I mean, this book has very similar dimensions to that. And so what is that like? Because I think it is a lot of credit in a lot of ways to that. And I think it's very important. And I think this is one of the secret sauces to manga. And if you're doing American manga and you do not have the same size standard as a Naruto or a One Piece or a Dragon Ball Z, I mean, because to me, that automatically starts equating commonality.
Right. No, it's gonna feel good. I'm hoping to put this next to so right now my actual goal is to get next to Saturday AM and go toe to toe with them.
That's in Walmart, right?
Yeah. So yeah. And you want to start in Walmart. You want to start in the basic American stores, because that basically means that you win, because you're in the big big boy areas. But I don't know how it feels because it hasn't happened yet. I'm waiting to see on it.
Even just dimensioning it out, because as I was stating, obviously I put books on bookshelves, right? And so when I have a Naruto copy of Naruto next to something else, and my friend runs Shotgun Samurai, and that's another manga book. I mean, if you have a book named Shotgun Samurai and you don't do that book in a manga, you failed. Dashiell Okamoto did that book in a manga style, and it looks like it belongs next to Naruto in the same dimensions, and I think it's really smart.
Right.
But even to go into what you just said, I mean, what is that like to aim to get into Walmart? Because obviously, I think also manga has changed, and I actually just discovered this, that manga is now in Target, it's now in Walmart to some degree. Obviously, it's on Amazon, it's in comic shops, but why wouldn't you want to be in Walmart? Walmart serves, I think, 80% of Americans every year step foot into a Walmart at least once.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. I think there's 238 million unique visitors, and there's 350 million people in the United States. So that's a huge number of the people who go into a Walmart at least once a year in America.
Yeah, and no, that's I'm looking forward to seeing it, and doing my little photo op of, hey, look, I'm here. I'm right next to Attack on Titan. I'm right next to Toilet Bound. This is awesome. No, it's been a small little dream to at least be publicized a little bit as as everybody else is. But I would rather just kind of see how people like it and what they got from it more than seeing it on shelves at this moment. You ask me tomorrow, it might change.
Yeah, but this is interesting because I want to have these discussions with people in comics. So I come from a financial world. I obviously run a business buying and selling comics and collectibles. And what I like to tell people is that you need to care about the creativity of it, but you also need to care about the monetary side of it and the business side of it,
Right.
because glory is great, but glory only lasts so long. And if you can't, if you want to do this full time, you need to actually understand your business side of all this. And so getting into a Walmart, getting into a Target, obviously growing your Kickstarter fan base. Like, I think it's so important to understand that, like, I'm right now writing my script, but I'm thinking about the business side of my comic. And I'm saying, cool, how do I make money? What strategy do I want to use? Do I want to go into publishing? Do I want to be in Walmart? Do I want to take more of a high-end variant, argument where I'm producing a variant every 3 months that I sell on a Shopify store, and that it's 200 and print run, and I'm selling them for $20, and then that's whatever that equates to minus printing and art. And so now all of a sudden I'm trying to figure out how do I get paid and what business I want to run. And I think it's super important. And I think it makes sense to say, hey, I want to be in Walmart, because I haven't heard somebody say that on my show ever. And I've been doing this for 9 years. And it sounds funny and you laugh, but it's not so much that you want to be in Walmart. It's the idea that you're thinking ahead saying, how do I make money doing this? And I think it's a big problem in comics right now, where people are like saying, how do I get distribution so that I'm getting a check every month or every quarter for my properties? And even if it's only 25 cents in profit, if they're selling 10,000 units every single month of your book, it's a good chunk of money.
It's very good. No, I didn't know that people weren't really thinking like that. Most of the people around me are trying their best to have dreams of making money off of this, but I think they're not thinking of it as just go to your local Walmart, or at least getting put in there. A lot of them are like, I won't sell out. I want to make sure I do XYZ this way. And I'm like, well, no, let's go to Walmart. Like, there's money in there apparently.
Yeah, I think it's complicated because the term sellout is a very loaded term.
Yeah.
And I'll be very honest. I mean, I can be bought. It's not. I mean, I can be bought. It's not that hard to admit that. And if I wrote a book and somebody's like, yo, I want to only be your exclusive variant guy, and I want every variant you do to be with me, and I'm going to order 5 of them, and Midtown Comics came to me and they were going to pay me $10,000 a month to have 3 variants every single month of my book, and that was that, you're damn right I would sell out. I mean, it's a good chunk of money. And I hate to say it, but it's a matter of, this is a lot of money that can change my life. And at the end of the day, I want the cha-ching.
Right.
Because money is great. And you can do a lot more with money than you can do with other things. But I think it's just so interesting to hear it, because I think it's a big issue, and I think everybody has a problem because they don't want to seem, I'm in this for the money. Is the problem?
Oh, I'm in it for the money, but I'm also in it for the story aspect. But they both sound the same, so.
Yeah. No. Look. I'm writing a comic because I want to sell it to Netflix, without a doubt. There's no question about that, or Hulu, and I want the thing optioned. Because I understand that that's where money is. And so it's just easier for me to write a comic, and that's the whole point, is that I'm going to make money on every aspect of the business. But I'm not writing it because I love comics. I enjoy comics, but I want to make money doing it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Not at all.
And I wish people would be honest. I really do. But I digress.
It's a lot of stupid, like modesty going around. So
it's not even modesty. It's that nobody wants to seem like an asshole and come off as an egotistical asshole who's stating it. That's what I think it is, to be quite honest. And I think if people said, look, I enjoy comics, I'm having a blast writing my book, but I want to make money too, that's not coming off as an egotist, an asshole, in it for capitalistic. That's not coming off of any of that. That's just coming off as saying, I want to get this done. But I digress. Everybody. But I do want to talk about your rewards, because that's the fun part.
The best part. The part that I thought would have actually sold well from the first week.
Okay. We're gonna talk about that too in a second, because that's controversial just the same. But obviously you have a digital copy of your book, which is the cheapest version, I believe.
Right.
And then I think you have some physical copy, and I don't know if it's what this one is, but that just might be.
That's the basic one, yeah.
Yeah, you have that. And then these are somewhat out of order. So these are sort of the higher end tiers, I guess, where these are your variants.
Yep.
It does not have censored on it. I promise you that will be removed. So this is one of the covers. I think this is 25, or is it 30?
25.
So that one is 25. I think this one
is 35.
Is 35. Again, I don't have these numbers in front of me. Then you have this one, which I think is it 20?
25.
So that one's 25. I think that this one has two versions. I think there's the nude version, and then there's the censored version.
Right.
I think one of them is 30 and one of them is 25. If I'm not mistaken.
No, both of them are 25. If you just tell me, I'll give you which one.
I didn't know. This is why I asked.
Yeah. It's some people ordered it, and then they were like, "Can you keep that K there?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, no problem."
Yeah. I mean, I actually like it not nude. I actually think it's much more playful, personally.
Put the K there.
I haven't decided yet. Let me put it that way. And then there's the pixel version, which is cool too, which is fun. And I like this. So obviously, I mean, and am I missing one? I don't think I am. Am I?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think I was missing one either, but like obviously, and then there's some other stuff out there, but obviously there's a variety of different covers here. Obviously, we have the basic one right here.
Right.
We got this one, which is, I don't know how to describe it, but obviously you got that sort of fun, chilling out. And then we go into something like this, which is the rare stuff. And then this is the one that's sort of My Hero Academia like.
Ah, dang it. You were supposed to guess that. That's where I got the idea from.
Very, very, very interesting.
Jeez.
It took me like 2 seconds. It took me 2 seconds.
I'm not good at hiding nothing.
And then this is cool too, because pixel art is just fun. And sprite art is just fun. And that's a cool concept. And then obviously you have this one too. And I don't know the style, but it's thick lines, which are cool, and bolded lines. And I forget the style of what that's called, but obviously when you have thicker, bolder lines, it's like almost new school-esque.
Yeah.
It's a good way to put it, but it's almost like finer new school and not caricature new school, if that makes sense.
In a sense, yeah.
And so, like, what is this like to have all those different covers and also have the nude stuff in there and play around with it and have a variety of really, what I like to call pop art covers?
I try to make every cover something for everybody. There's your average, female cover, and then I looked up what like femgaze was, which is what Hex's cover is. So I was like, hey, if I'm getting a bunch of guys getting Prisma, then I should work on something for the ladies to also want for Hex. So I played around with that. The Pixel one is actually a callback. Originally, I was gonna sell Jazz. Yeah, that one. I was gonna sell Jazz as a video game and attach it to the actual manga. And I got reached out to by a indie developer, and we worked on it for a while, and then he just quit. So I had all these assets like in my folder, and I was like, okay, well, I can't just let them sit here forever and rot. So I pulled him back up, and I took him out of the animation frame and try to do that. So I try to get everything for everybody, and it looks like it's working ish a little bit.
Let's actually talk about that, because this is tricky. And again, I mean, I've seen people do 15 covers. I've seen people do 3 covers. I've seen people do a cover A and a cover B, and then they're done.
That's it.
I've seen people do with a graphic novel a soft cover and a hard cover, and then a digital, and that's it. And I've seen it fail, and I've seen it been wildly successful and do 20 grand. So I've seen it all. And so what is this like to really figure out the magical sauce? Because I think this is your 3rd campaign, and obviously you have some data, but also it's very tricky right now in Kickstarter on what's going to work, what's going to catch somebody's eye. Because I'll be really honest, I was scrolling through a Facebook group posting something, and I stopped because of this cover, right? But somebody might stop for this cover, and you don't know until you start throwing it out there. And so what is that like? Because it's so tricky to figure out what's going to get somebody to stop. And then also you hope that they're interested in your book beyond just the cover, but like you got to grab their attention. So what was this like, trying to figure that out, and also trying to capture everybody and throw in a wide net, for lack of a better word?
I did so much research on what everybody else was doing on Kickstarter, so I paid attention. If you had a not safe for work cover, then chances are you're going to leave with that cover more than your actual base cover. So I led with the base one, and people were like, it's okay, but no, flip that one for Prisma. And I did it, and that actually had got more eyes on it because of the fact that it had all the colors on it, and it had the whole big old butt. So people kind of were like, yo, as you did. So it's like, oh, it must work. It must be a thing. So no, you want to, as all ads work, you just want to make sure that it catches people long enough for them to get curious. And I think I may have gotten it, but I don't see it in the in the actual backing process.
So let's actually dive into that too, because there's obviously Kickstarter, and this is just my opinion, where there are people who are doing great at it. Tom Hutchinson is doing great at it. Pat Shand is doing great at it. But then you have other people like my friend John Westhoff, who had a book called The Drumsticks of Doom, and he also did paired it with Depowered, and he barely made it across his 5,500 goal, and it was down to the wire. You had Rob Multari doing something with his plushie for Nightwolf, and he barely made it across the finish line. And so it's very interesting right now. And obviously it was $10,000, and a plushie is a little bit different than a comic. It's a different market to some degree. But there's plenty of comics that are struggling. And there's plenty of people who are in for a rough outing, for lack of a better word. And, I think you're experiencing that too, where it seems that you're getting attention, you're getting people to stop, but then it's almost the conversion is having an issue. And I think that's what happened with John. I think it's happened with a bunch of people. And there's some top veterans in the comic world who are really fucking struggling right now. And I don't know why. And I mean, from my perspective as a fan, I'm exhausted from backing people's shit. And money is getting tight. And I'm a little bit nervous about the economy, to be quite honest. And I'm also overcapitalized in everything that I bought. And I think that people are getting tired. I really do. And I think people might just be exhausted from backing things. And I even think some people were backing 3 or 4 projects a week. It's kind of like, they just might be exhausted at this point. And I'm curious what you think, because it's a very weird time right now. And I don't know why it's doing what it's doing, Kickstarter, because I don't think it's done this in a while.
I think people are just, they're not, they want to back something that they know or are familiar with. So they're not taking risk. So they'll like look at something and go, okay, but I don't know him. It looks great, but I don't know him. So it becomes a whole notoriety issue versus backing.
So somebody said it, and I took a little offense to what the person said. I said it on his show, but he's a friend. He said, "You're kind of the backer every month. It's a friend plus one." And he's not necessarily wrong. It's more like a friend plus three. But even still, it's the idea that I back people who I've interviewed, or if I haven't interviewed you, I look at what you're doing, and obviously I know something in your campaign. So if you have a motto that I know on your cover, I might be a backer of it, even though I don't know your campaign, because I'm a fan of that model, right? Or that cosplayer or whatnot. But even still, like, I don't want to take risks on things. And I want to back people that I know that are going to deliver. I want to back people who, not even if they're going to fund, I'll take a risk on somebody not funding because there's no risk to me, but I want to back somebody who I think is going to be able to deliver. And I also say, look, I work really hard for my money, right?
Yeah.
And then I also say, look, I'm not really a fan of this thing. I mean, I'm not a fan of not safe for work books. They don't do it for me. And it's nothing against, that type of genre. It's just like, I want to read an action-packed story. Mm-hmm. I don't want to read about sex in a comic.
No.
It just doesn't do it for me on a story level. And it's just a preference. It has nothing to do with whether it's good or bad or written well. It's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think it's so interesting. And I'm very, very concerned. I don't know if you are, because I think there's a massive shift going on in comics right now, collectively, and in media. And I'm curious how you feel about that, because I honestly think with a cover like this, right, and even something like this to some degree, and then throwing something like this in there, I think that you should be at $3,000, not $2,000. And it's bewildering to me, because your book should, from a story standpoint, and even from a cover standpoint, should be doing better. And I don't know why it's not.
That's the thing I've been wondering. So before I even shot off the Kickstarter, I released Chapter 0, which is a prequel to the volume. I released it on Global Comics and my website. And I waited a weekend. I waited a whole week. I waited a whole week, and then I shot the whole Kickstarter off. I waited because I wanted people to finally be able to see what you're getting in the in the volume. And I got back a lot of praise. A lot of people liked it. A lot of people were like, I can't wait to read more. And I was like, perfect. So the Kickstarter over here is going to get you that more. And that the whole conversion was off. So it's some type of force against me. I don't know what it is. You're not the first person to even tell me that, honestly.
I mean, look, I'll be very honest. There's some weird stuff going on in the internet. There's been a lot of weird shifting going on. Comics, in my opinion, have been massively weird for the last 18 months.
Yeah.
Where we were all in this together when COVID hit. Then the first year and a half of COVID, everybody was in it together and everybody was nice. And I have a theory on this, and I've stated it before, so it's not anything new. I think what's happened is that things are opening up, and I think everybody now is trying to vibe and fight for as much human power as possible and for everybody's dollar and as much attention. And I think that there's a lot of infighting going on. And I think it's problematic, and I think there's a lot of proxy wars going on, and it sounds conspiratorial. It really does. But
I see it. It's real.
I think that's what's going on, is that I think people who now realize the gates are back open, and now we're all somewhat at the starting line, and everybody is saying everything's been reset, and now they want as much power and make a name for themselves as much as humanly possible. And I see it in the podcast world. I see it in comics, and I see it with people who used to be on my show a lot, and now they don't get back to me. They don't want to talk to me. They're copping an attitude with me. And I'm like, wait a second, like, where the fuck did you get so big from? And I think that there's a lot of shit going on. And I think that there's just been a massive change in attitude. And I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. I really do.
I mean, yeah. I think that could so that can be flipped. That can be fixed uh by the creators. I feel like people like me, a lot of people who are on the outside who are not as big can kind of nudge certain people to go back to the old ways. But it takes a big village, and I'm not getting much help on that front either.
I think it's crazy. I think people also have forgotten. I think also a lot of people have gotten bigger lately, and I think they've forgotten where they've come from. Like I know
That too.
exactly where I've come from. I've been doing this for 9 years, and believe me, I know exactly where I've come from, and I'm still there. I mean, I'll interview somebody who has 500 Instagram followers, and I'll interview somebody who has 150,000 Instagram followers, and I
Right.
treat both parties the same way. And I think a lot of people have forgotten where they've come from. And you know what? I think it's an issue, and I think it's problematic. And I think also I'm concerned because I ran a Kickstarter for this show, and I got a lot of criticism asking for money to basically cut the line and be a guest on my show, advertising. And there's a lot of criticism publicly and privately. And my response to that is saying, if we don't try new things, how do we evolve?
Right.
And I still haven't really heard a good answer from somebody when I threw that out to them. And I think it's the same thing with comics. Is that if you criticize people for trying a new concept, how the fuck do you evolve? And I
Because
think
you don't.
and so I think it's a real issue, and I'm very concerned because if your book doesn't get funded, right, and maybe it was just a bad time, bad outing, maybe a few tweaks here and there, or if you launch it in 2 weeks from now, it'll do better and it'll get funded really quickly. But even still, if books are struggling and they're trying new ideas or having a different interpretation, I mean, is the comm community really that healthy? And
No.
it raises questions: is media healthy? Because that's my concern. Because I want good products. I want good TV. I want good movies. I want good wrestling. I'm a wrestling fan. I want good video games. I want good anime. And I want good stuff. And if people aren't putting out that content and there's not a market for it, how do we get stuff that's evolving versus something that's going to make money that's a piece of shit?
You don't. It's been designed like that because somebody wants it that way. So we have to evolve, not them.
Fair enough. And so obviously, I mean, it's a very controversial issue in
Yeah.
which that, I mean, look, I go back to the idea of saying, if you want independent media and you want people like me to exist, you have to support it.
Mhm.
Now, support could be sharing, support could be monetary, support could be whatever you think support should be, everybody. But if you don't want independent media, that's fine. Then if independent media ceases to exist, and this is where it goes. I mean, most indie creators do not have a Bleeding Cool article being written about them. But you have people like me and a variety of other interview shows trying to push you out. And then I'm like, hey, can you support me? And nobody does. And then
Wait, did you say Bleeding Cool?
Bleeding Cool.
Do I have? I think I have that.
But I mean, Bleeding Cool's a comic, website. But
I
my
know
point is
nothing
that
about it.
they don't write articles about indie comic creators, and they don't give them media. But then you have people like me giving everybody media, and people who are not in those big, platforms. And then I said, cool, how are you supporting the ecosystem? And that's where this gets all jacked up.
Right.
And then people bitch about not getting media. It's like a vicious cycle.
That is never going to end. It's just going to keep going on and on.
It's ridiculous. It's just, it's whatever. It's me griping is what it looks like. But I think it's super interesting because I'm just concerned about the industry. And me and a bunch of people disagree on this who are doing all right in the comic realm. And I'm like, great, you're doing all right. And I'm glad you're doing all right. And I get you're trying things that are new. But there's also a bunch of people trying things that are new that are struggling.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm hesitant. And I'm very nervous because I want good products that are going to make me excited to read something. And I'm finding out that it's really actually hard to find good material to read.
Yeah.
And so that's just where we're as a creator. I'm very interested in your view on all this and where this is going, because obviously it affects you directly with your campaign, but even just on a broader ecosphere, I mean, it's very, very, very upsetting and complicated right now.
Well, if you want a certain thing nowadays, you have to make it, and that's where I'm at. That's what I'm doing. So I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of things that I can do. This Kickstarter is not the end all be all. If it doesn't get funded on Kickstarter, I have ways to fund it. It will still come out. So have you read chapter 0 yet?
I did read chapter 0.
All right, nice.
I thought it was a 0 and not a hero. No, I'm just messing. It was a given. It was too easy. It was too easy. It was like you gave that to me in like a solid one. I know it was on Global Comics. I like Global Comics to a degree. I think they do a good job on certain things, and I think they do not such a good job on others. We were trying to work out a sponsorship deal, and it just didn't happen. But that doesn't change their platform in any realm. I think it's complicated, and I don't think they're a comicsology yet. I think that they could potentially be, but again, I think what they're doing is interesting, but I'm not exactly sure if they're the answer to the whole indie comic sphere.
No, they kind of put themselves out there to be, but they're not. So I have 10,000 page reads on Global Comics, which is astounding. When I look back at the analytics, they only gave me 4,000 from the site. So the other 6,000 I got myself. So from that number, I realized, oh, I should have just been pushing my website instead, where I get ad revenue. So I kind of made a dumb call. It was a smart call in my head, and it still is kind of smart. But now that I know about my own reach, I do a lot better on my own.
Yeah, it's tricky, and obviously you don't know how things are going to go, but a lot of stuff's going on. Obviously there's some other stuff as well, rewards wise. You can get your likeness in the book, so that's something that's out there. That's pretty cool. You could get obviously the Crystal Ink bundle, which is a bunch of comics. You get pretty much every variant in there.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a whole bundle for that. There's some cards I think you could add in there or get.
Oh, the cards. Do you have the picture that I already set up?
I do not have the picture of the cards. That's the one thing. That's the one thing I just realized. Like when I was doing it right after work, and I'm like, fuck, I forgot the cards.
The cards are actually flying off the shelves a little bit. I might just sell them like by themselves. They are that good.
And so there's that. And then I don't know if there's a song add-on or if it's a stretch.
So Beats is a sound bomber. And I made a concept mixtape of songs that would showcase a lot of his powers. I did it for fun last year. I was just kind of like, because I work on music as well. It's like a long hobby of mine, and I made this really fake mixtape, and all of a sudden it went from I'll never use this to going I should go ahead and try to sell this. So that's all it really is. It's cool. It's really cool.
That's in play, and again, it's just something different because let's be realistic on Kickstarter. Kickstarter, in a lot of ways, is a privilege, and it's not a right. So I say this in a weird way, and I've said it before, but I said your local comic shop is a right to buy your comics, even though it's not a right as in, freedom of speech, the First Amendment. Most people in comics understand that going into a comic shop, that's where you buy your comics for the most part. Kickstarter is more of a privilege to buy your books from there or back your books or participate on there. And so because you don't have to do it, and sometimes you'll pay more because retail is not the same as Kickstarter once you go that route, and you have to be cheaper in retail, but you don't get all the bonuses. You're not part of them. You get all the updates. You don't get the cool covers. And so what is that like? Because I think with having that song, and that mixtape and having those things that stand out, again, it becomes an event, it becomes a privilege versus it being in retail, because you really can't sell a mixtape in retail. It's a little harder to do it.
Oh no, I wouldn't even dream of doing it. No, so I mean, like I said, if we don't do Kickstarter, I do have a nice small backup that's gonna still utilize a lot of what's in the Kickstarter, as a bonus. So there's still work to be done even next week. So, which I would not.
Even to the idea though, like that mixtape makes your project stand out a little bit,
Right.
where it's not the same old package. I think that's the thing that Kickstarter has become in a lot of ways, is that you have to become, you can only get it here. This is an experience. This is a right to buy this, and it's only going to be available on this campaign.
That's true.
And so, like, when I back a Kickstarter, so I'll give an example. I'll use Tom Hutchinson as an example. He has a book that's only going to be available on the Kickstarter campaign, and if there's maybe 5 of them left, if at all, he'll sell those 5 at a con. But there's only 200 of them, and there's only 100 with the dust jacket. So now, once those 100 with the dust jacket are gone, they're fucking gone, right? That's it. So it's an experience, and they're probably all going to be sold out on this campaign, Penny for Your Soul, War. And so now I wound up buying it, even though I technically really didn't have the money to buy it. I mean, I did, but this is why I'm backing off of Kickstarter for a while, because I'm overcapitalized, but I knew that it's going to be gone.
Right.
So that's where I'm going with this. But again, I digress. I digress on all that, but I think it's really interesting because obviously when I run my campaign, I'm going to want to make it an experience, and I want to make it exclusive.
Right.
And so I don't really know what I'm going to do, but I think that's one of the biggest problems of Kickstarter also is, how do you get something that hasn't been done before? And that's what I think of your mixtape. It hasn't really been done before. Somebody doing music and original music in association with the campaign. And I think it makes it different, but I digress. But enough about that. Let's talk about religion next.
Oh shit! It's like, all right. Well, thank you for that. I'll see you guys later. And hit the button.
So no, we're not going to talk about religion next. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah.
I am curious though, because since we're on manga and all that fun stuff. I'm curious where you see manga going collectively, because you're obviously producing a manga. I don't think you're going to stop producing mangas, whether it's this story, another story, the story after, the continuation of this. But obviously manga has become, as I stated, the go-to thing. Obviously it's proven that it's selling, both the Japanese stuff, the American stuff, anything related to manga-esque is really popular right now. And what is this like? Because clearly there's a generation of kids growing up saying, I'm familiar with manga and I'm not familiar with American comic books. And so what is this like for you? And where do you even see the future of that style going? Because obviously you're directly impacted.
All right. So picture this. It's 2025 and DC just comes out and goes, hey, we now have a manga studio. That's our future. Our future is not going to be we're going to make better American comics. The whole future is, hey, we're going to get in on this. And the only reason why I know that is because Webtoons has been kicking ass so far. And instead of every other provider making better stuff on their platform, now they're just making copies of Webtoons now. Like Amazon just came up with it, and I think Shonen Jump just did it too. So it's like if we can't beat them, join them. So if they're willing to do it for Webtoons, Marvel and DC and everybody else is next.
I thought Shonen Jump had their own digital subscription.
Yeah, but so there's the Shonen Jump, there's the Viz Media one that I have. But they also have their own Webtoons version, which is going to delve into the Korean style comics that are like knocking the market out from from up under them. they could just make better manga and compete, or they're just gonna be like, you know what, let's just start buying some of this Korean stuff as well and put it under this new one. So there'll be a lot of that going forward. I give it like 2 years.
That is interesting, and it's super fascinating what they're planning to do.
Yeah.
And so obviously that is so interesting in that regard. But yeah, so obviously I think it's going to be fascinating, and obviously we covered a lot of stuff here. So yeah, so pretty much we covered a lot of stuff, but I do want to give you a chance to self-promote yourself. Obviously, it's an amazing book. I am super excited. I really do hope you get funded. If you don't, I think you should come back in 2 weeks with a few tweaks, because I think it's not the book that's the problem. I think the environment is crazy right now in Kickstarter, and it's a very rough terrain, for lack of a better word. But where could people find you? Where could people follow you? Where could people check out the link? All that fun stuff, the Kickstarter, all that fun stuff.
Well, apparently the link to the Kickstarter is actually.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not working. Obviously, you know, I'm going to be looking at it, fixing it, and for whatever reason, sometimes this happens where something just gets all jacked up. So obviously, I don't know why it's not working. It should have been working, but it happens. I can't do anything about it right now, guys.
Yeah, for the middle of the show. You can find me on Twitter. My hashtag is Crystal Inc. It's right there, but right there on the screen, I think, right here in black and white. You can find me on my website, which is www.crystalinc.com. Kickstarter, of course, you go on there. If you type in jazz, I'm like 5 things down. Like there's not that many jazz Kickstarters. Yeah, I think that's all I really use. If you do go on Twitter, say hi to me. You know, do that. That'd be awesome. But no, I had a good time. I'm at the 50% mark for Kickstarter, and I have this week. So after next Tuesday, Kickstarter goes down because it's finished. So hopefully it finishes funded. Who knows?
Yeah, and then I'm just gonna keep saying it, and I've been saying it for a while. You have to support indie, and what that means is when people have Kickstarters, you got to back their Kickstarters. And you got to share out their Kickstarters. You got to actually purchase their Kickstarters. You got to go check it out. It is super, super important. Furthermore, obviously following people on social media, it goes a long way. You know, if we even ensuring out that you back somebody's campaign goes a long way as well. That's something that you have to do, because if you like something and you want to see more of it, you definitely got to support. And it's not enough anymore to back somebody's campaign. You need to share it on social media that other people know. And you need to follow people on social media so that you keep up to date with them. You check out what they're doing, and that you actually engage with them, because that does matter on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and every other social media platform. It makes a huge difference. Right. And then as far as I'm concerned, everything that I do, obviously I'm Pop Anime Comics on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I got a lot of cool stuff going on there. Obviously, you could hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, always posting around those areas. Furthermore, I am on YouTube. A lot of fun stuff's coming out on YouTube. I'm gearing up for a bunch of shorts that are going to come out probably in the next 3-4 weeks. Definitely getting some cool stuff out there. Every day I'm posting content. You never know who's coming on my show. I got a stacked week next week, so that's going to be fun. I got a cosplayer, and I got 2 people in comics, maybe even a third person. So check that out. And there's something for everybody on my YouTube channel under Pop Anime Comics. I promise you will find an interview for you there. I cannot say you will get smarter, but I can promise you will be entertained. So that's the only guarantee I can make. And so that's everything that I got. And so I'm going to give you the final word.
Back jazz. See breast. Also a story.
Well, I couldn't have said it any better myself, everybody. And that is a wrap.